The grocery store was quiet that evening, the soft hum of the lights echoing through the aisles. A tired mother stood at the checkout counter, her hands trembling as she clutched her worn-out wallet. Her little daughter, no more than 6, hugged a small teddy bear close to her chest, unaware of the weight her mother carried. The cashier scanned the last item, a box of milk, and smiled gently, but the mother's eyes were filled with silent worry. She slid her debit card through the machine, whispering a prayer that it wouldn't betray her this time. The beep that followed was sharp, almost cruel. "I'm sorry, ma'am," the cashier said softly, glancing at the screen. "Your card declined." The mother froze. For a second, her mind went blank. Then came the flood, shame, panic, and the familiar ache of helplessness. She stammered, Can you try again?" The cashier nodded and swiped once more. Same sound. Same message. The people in line began to shift impatiently, their sighs cutting through the fragile air. Her daughter looked up, confused. "Mommy, can we still get my cereal?" The mother's throat tightened. She forced a smile for her child, but her voice cracked. "Not today, sweetie. Maybe next time." She began to pull out items from the bag, milk, bread, fruit, one by one, returning them to the counter. Each item felt like a piece of her pride slipping away. The cashier's eyes softened, but rules were rules. "I'm really sorry," she whispered again. The little girl looked down, holding the teddy bear tighter. Around them, the world seemed to keep moving, indifferent to their quiet heartbreak. Then, a calm voice from behind broke the silence. "Try mine." Everyone turned. It was a man, standing tall in a simple jacket, eyes kind but steady. He held out his card without hesitation. "Please," he said to the cashier, "put it on mine." The mother blinked, unsure if she heard right. "No, I can't accept that," she stammered. "You don't even know me." The man smiled faintly. "I don't need to. I just know what it feels like to need a little help." The cashier looked between them, waiting for a sign. The mother's lips trembled. "Sir, please, I'll pay you back," she whispered, tears threatening to fall. He shook his head gently. "You don't owe me anything. Just promise me you'll keep smiling for that little one." The little girl peeked from behind her mother's dress, curiosity shining in her big brown eyes. The man gave her a small wink. "Teddy likes milk, right? We can't let him go hungry." The mother's composure broke. She nodded silently, her hand covering her mouth to hide the sob that escaped. The cashier completed the transaction, handing her the receipt with a soft smile. The man stepped back, as if it was no big deal, ready to leave quietly. But the mother turned, her voice trembling. "Why would you do this for a stranger?" she asked. He paused, his expression distant for a moment. "Because once," he said slowly, "someone did the same for me." Her eyes widened. "Really?" she asked. He nodded. "Years ago, I was in your place. Lost my job, had nothing left. My little boy was hungry, and I couldn't even afford a loaf of bread. A woman at the store covered my bill. I promised myself I'd pass that kindness on someday." The mother's tears finally spilled over. The words hit deep, echoing through the fragile corners of her heart. She whispered, "Thank you," but it felt too small for what he'd just given. The man smiled softly. "You don't have to thank me," he said. "Just promise you'll do the same when you can. That's how kindness keeps going." The little girl tugged her mother's hand, her voice sweet and innocent. "Mommy, he's like an angel." The man chuckled. "Not an angel," he said. "Just someone who remembers what it feels like to need one." The cashier's eyes glistened. Even the people in line, moments ago impatient, stood quietly, some looking away, moved but unsure how to express it. As the mother gathered her groceries, the man turned to leave. But just before walking out, he looked back. "Take care of each other," he said simply. The mother nodded, still trying to find words. Outside, the sky was painted with soft shades of gold and pink, the kind of sunset that made everything seem possible again. The little girl waved through the glass doors, shouting, "Thank you, mister." The man smiled faintly, his eyes glistening as he disappeared into the fading light. That night, as the mother unpacked the groceries, she placed the milk on the counter and turned to her daughter. "Remember what that man said?" she asked softly. The little girl nodded. "Be kind and help people, even if they're strangers." Her mother smiled through tears. "That's right, sweetheart. Because kindness comes back when you least expect it." She looked out the window, whispering another thank you to the invisible thread of humanity that still tied hearts together. Days passed, and the mother couldn't stop thinking about that moment. She didn't know his name, but she remembered his words, pass it on. It became her quiet mission. Whenever she could, she did something kind, no matter how small. A meal for a neighbor, a ride for a coworker, or just listening to someone who needed to talk. It didn't erase her struggles, but it filled her life with purpose and warmth that money couldn't buy. Months later, she was at the same grocery store, this time with enough to spare. As she stood in line, she noticed a young man ahead of her fumbling with his phone, his face pale. The cashier's voice broke softly, "I'm sorry, sir, your card declined." The moment felt painfully familiar. Without thinking, she stepped forward. "It's okay," she said, offering her card. "Try mine." The man turned, shocked. "You don't even know me." She smiled gently. "I don't need to." The cashier smiled knowingly as she completed the payment. The man looked at her with tears in his eyes. "Why?" he asked, his voice trembling. She replied softly, "Because once, someone did the same for me." The man nodded slowly, overcome by emotion. And in that instant, the circle of kindness continued, a quiet, invisible chain linking hearts through compassion. As she walked out with her daughter, she whispered, "See, honey. That's how the world gets better, one kind act at a time." The little girl grinned and squeezed her mother's hand. The sky above them glowed with the same golden hue as that evening months ago. It was as if the universe itself smiled, proud of the kindness it witnessed being passed on once again. Far away, the man who once said, "Try mine," sat in a small cafe, sipping coffee. He didn't know it, but his simple act had started a ripple, one that would reach countless others. Sometimes, you never see the impact of your kindness, but it lives on, quietly changing lives. And perhaps, in a world that often forgets how to care, that is the most powerful miracle of all.